Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Top Bins with Twins. This week, Paul and I are going to be doing a virtual podcast. We're not going to be filming together, a bummer, but we felt like this might be the best way for us to talk with you all this week because there's some interesting FPL ideas that we're having that I think will make for some very engaging content for you all. So be sure to hit that subscribe and like button. That goes a very long way for us and really helps to get our name out there, right? And get more people part of our community, right? So, um, yeah, be sure to subscribe and like. But we are going to be talking to you all today about sword versus shield. So, as we're nearing this run in, a lot of managers are either going to be playing really protective of their overall rank, which is Paul, and then other managers will be will also be very
Attack minded.
aggressive. Aggressive's the best way to say it, I guess, or attack minded. That works well, right? You're trying to increase your overall rank as we have 4 more weeks to go. So, with that, let's hand it over to our expert with the shield at the moment. Paul, tell everyone how you're doing.
I'm holding my shield up here with two arms. No,
Doing great.
yeah, everything's going well, Luke. I would say this podcast is probably going to be more of a philosophical debate than anything else. So just
Hmm.
prepare to really just dive into the weeds of morality and values and really, what the human essence is really down to. That's what the podcast is going to focus on today. So, you
We,
guys are coming for FPL content. Sorry, we're just talking philosophy today.
if we hit the point of where we mention altruism, podcast over. um, we will not go there because it is an ongoing debate that we have with one of our friends. And that's been going on for over a decade now, so there's a
Yeah.
lot of stuff that we could dive into there. But what we will be doing today, as Paul said, is getting very philosophical with some FPL strategy and how we can approach the final run in. But before we dive into that and really get into the weeds a little bit, we're first going to talk about how game week 34 went for both of us. So, Paul, if you want to, let's go ahead and pull up our teams, and we can talk through how the game week went for both of us.
Okay, let's see. One.
And so we also wanted to start out this podcast as Paul's working on that in the background. Wanted to highlight that we had it confirmed today. So we're filming this as of game week, the gap between game week 34 and 35. We just had Yes, I can see it. We just had an absolute cracker between PSG and Bayern in the first leg, where PSG now leads 5-4, the first leg. But what that means is we also were told today that game week 36 has been confirmed as a double for Man City and Crystal Palace. And that will be the final double of the season. No more changes to be made unless there's a really extreme situation that emerges over time, over the next 4 game weeks, which we highly doubt. So,
Okay.
um, prepare your teams for that accordingly. With Crystal Palace and Man City, Crystal Palace feels a bit like waiting landmine. You're gonna get really lucky if you get it right, I think, but maybe you do get it right. So that is something else to keep on the radar. So without any further ado, we're gonna talk about our teams here. So Paul, do you want to go back to it should be
Yeah,
slide
yeah.
3 or 4?
Yeah, let me see this. This shit is not picking up. Okay. All right. We'll show you
Paul's
the intro
team
slide.
first.
There's the intro slide. From here, guys, Luke, also just real quick, can you see my profile, my video on
I
the
can. Hmm.
okay. Okay, cool.
It might be different how the viewers are viewing, but at this point I can see yours.
Okay, great. So just so everybody's aware, my team had a pretty decent week, 61 points on the free hit. As you can tell, um, really the defense did carry my free hit. Pedro Porro 8 points, Gabriel 8 points, Raya 10 points. Honestly, double Arsenal defense was the way to go. It was a little
Uh-huh.
nervy at points. Raya made a couple really good saves. Arsenal did not have complete control of that match. Um, Realistically, looking at the team, really wish I would have captained Gibbs White or that Havertz wouldn't have gone out injured. Um,
Yeah.
we also have a Salah pinch out. They don't get the penalty. And then the captaincy of Watkins was just wrong. I mean, there's no other way around it. Sometimes you just got to look around and say, hey, that one did not work out. Um,
Yeah.
but and
Yeah.
I think it's good. Like we're talking philosophy here. Um, the reason why I went with Watkins is because I felt like that's somebody that has been in great form. He's scored a ton, and in Europe and also in their previous Premier League games. And he had a couple games, 2 goals, a goal and assist, that kind of thing. When he gets in these hot forms, he can, have those really high returns. And in my mind, I was like, I feel like everybody's going to go with the Bruno captaincy this week.
Yeah.
And it just felt like a situation where, if he got a goal and an assist, 2 goals, that kind of thing, it probably would have put the mini league in a position where I would have felt like it was pretty much at a stage where I was feeling very confident, that I was.
What is your point difference in the mini league, Paul? I know it's probably still at close to 100 points, correct?
Yeah, I think it's a little above that. Let me see. I'm going to pull that up real quick here.
Because I think the
So
gap between us is around 110, 120 points or so.
yeah, so
Um,
it's I'm currently about let's see, that is 110 points ahead of the nearest person in our mini league.
okay,
Um, yeah, Luke, the gap's a little more than you thought for
maybe 140, 100. Oh yeah, after my
yeah,
negative 12, that
yeah. So
that
it's
probably does me in for the year.
yeah, it's more around 140, that kind of range. So, but hey, everything's to play for. There's still 4 game weeks. Things
Yeah,
can go horribly wrong for me. So I hope not though.
fingers crossed they do.
Yeah, yeah,
Hopefully
but
your shield breaks.
we'll see. We'll see. Um, but yeah, pretty good free hit there for me. I think that was well played. Could have been a little bit better. Gibbs White standout pick. Thank you, sir. You probably are coming into the team sometime soon, I'd say.
Oh, you're going to be transferring him in. Okay.
Possibly. Possibly. We'll see.
I think it's a
You
good
never
pick,
know.
but Forest do have a difficult run going forward, Paul. If we look at their fixtures, and the thing too is they have Europa League they're playing as well
Mhm.
against Aston Villa in the semis. So in the Premier League, they have Chelsea away, which is a trickier fixture. They have Newcastle at home, United away, and then they close out the season with Bournemouth at home. All four of those, I could see them losing. Not that I think it's likely they do, but if things don't go their way, it's possible that they could lose all four of those.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Which would be interesting too, Luke. So if we look at Forest, they're currently on 39 points, right? If they
mhm.
lose the next four and you see somebody like Spurs, who there's a lot of questions there, with Xavi Simmons now being out due to his ACL, which honestly you just hate to see. I mean, that's a really tough injury there.
Yeah,
And then West Ham, I mean, you could see a situation, where Forrest had a great performance this past week, but maybe you're still in the relegation fight. You have to keep performing. So those next four are going to be really very important for them.
yeah, I completely agree. So we'll see what happens. Gibbs White is definitely the most informed player in the league right now. I mean, if we look at his past fixtures, so he currently is at so 1 goal, 1 assist last week, 3 goals before that, the previous week against Burnley. And then he had a goal against Porto as well. So, I mean, he's got 5 goals and an assist over the past 3 fixtures that he's played for Forest, which
Yeah.
is quite the incredible result. So, you know, I think he's a great transfer, and even if Forest do have some tougher fixtures coming up, because they
Mhm.
still know they have to get points, right?
Yeah.
And Chelsea might be the least informed team in the entire league at the moment. So, I think it's good to target them as well. So,
Mhm.
Paul, for context, I think this is really good for the listeners going into the conversation we're having. What is your overall rank at this point in time?
Let me look. Just kidding. I know it. It's 31,000.
31,000. Okay, that's a excellent, excellent rank. At this point in the season, what is your target end rank? Once we go through game week 38, where do you want to be?
I would love to end up top 20K. I don't want to be like
Up 20K.
pushing or
Okay.
do anything crazy, but I feel like with consistent output over the next, 4 weeks and just making,
Mhm.
we'll touch on making decisions based on a shield mentality. I think that
Yeah.
I can get there.
Yeah. Yeah. I would definitely say so. If you think about it, so if you're looking for the next 4 weeks, right? And you say, I want to increase my rank by 2K each week,
Hmm.
that gets you really close to that 20K mark, right? And
Yeah.
that's very achievable. And you can do that by playing safe as well, right? And so,
No, I for sure can.
um, yeah. But, I'm
Let's look
really
at your team.
excited for you. What?
So let's look at your team. Let's see what you got going on here, Luke.
Yeah, let's take a look. So I ended up on 57 points for the week. With that being said, I did take a 12-point hit to get to this point. Um, you
Yeah.
know, it is what it is. I ended up I see, here's the thing. Going into the week, I was at 620K overall, which, I'm pretty happy with that, right? That's a good week.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, I knew I was gonna get crushed with this free hit week, right? There's so many people that had a full team of picking exactly who they wanted because they were free hitting. I, on
Hmm.
the other hand, didn't have a free hit left, so had to take a negative 12 to field the 9 players that I did.
Yeah.
And, Xavi Simmons ends up doing his knee in,
Yeah.
and you don't get a full 90 minutes out of him, so that's pretty damaging, right, to my overall rank because now I have to address that, although I was probably bringing in another midfielder, but most importantly, just feel bad for him, right? And hopefully he can have a
Mhm.
speedy recovery, with that ACL. But, so where that leaves me, right? So with the negative 12, I ended up on 45 points for the week. Um, like I said, my rank was, let me check and make sure. So it was 620K. I'm now at 670K. So I just went down 50,000. And considering how it's been, right? Like I'll take that, you
Yeah,
know.
for sure. That's a win, honestly, Luke, considering
It
that
is.
I
Yeah.
your team was looking like it's a win.
Yeah, no, by far, like, the choices I've made, the players I brought in have been the right choices. I think Gibbs
Mhm.
White has been a blessing in disguise. He has really propelled me forward over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And I think Dewsbury Hall is someone I'm really happy to have going forward, along with having, as of now, I have 2 Crystal Palace players, so that's good for the double coming up. And then
Mhm.
I also will have 3 City players as well going into next week. So, um that's something we can talk about, right? Because that is playing into my sword mentality, right? Like me being more aggressive with how
Yeah.
I'm trying to manage my team. So, um, with that, I think that's kind of the highlight of the week. As far as the team there exactly, I mean, getting an assist from Sar is really fortunate for the week. Um, I'm sure all of you all saw this, that, Crystal Palace's goal
In
where
my
Munoz
opinion,
scored. That was Sar who passed it to him. Actually, no, took the shot. He took the
yeah.
shot and then it got deflected out and Munoz finished it and then ran off celebrating afterward
Dude, honestly, like,
with the
that's
goalkeeper
probably,
down.
like, one of the weirder FPL returns, and not even from a
It
Munoz,
is,
but from a
yeah.
Star perspective, 'cause he takes the shot, and the ball almost basically bounces outside the box, right?
Way, way outside the box, yeah.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
it's one of the
From it
weirder
bounces
returns of the
across
season.
the box too, right? He took the shot on, like, basically the left wing to the left inner channel,
Yeah,
and then it deflects all the way out to Munoz on the right wing, and then he just floats it.
that's
One of the
crazy.
weirder goals, but, yeah, I was happy with my team. I was really disappointed how Aston Villa didn't get any returns from Watkins, and they also lost the clean sheet. that would have put me in a position where I think the -12 would have been completely canceled out if I would have gotten something from them.
Yeah.
But, some good performers this week kept my head close to the surface,
Hmm.
and I will take it. So,
Yeah.
onwards we go. And we have 4
Yeah.
weeks left to go. So that puts us both in a position where we're either pushing to really drastically increase our rank, or we're looking to stay afloat, right? And Paul, with that, you can go to the next slide.
Yep.
So we're going to enter the sword versus shield debate. Um,
Oh,
but before we do that, I
let's
think
just
we want to talk a little bit about what to expect for the run in here between Man City and Arsenal. If you
Mhm.
want, Paul, I'll let you take this. Let's try to get through this pretty quick,
Yeah.
and then we'll move on to the sword versus shield debate.
Yeah. So the main reason I wanted to bring this up in the podcast was because I know we talked about this on the last pod. And we talked about, the remaining fixtures for each team, that kind of stuff. Well, we now have the clarity on when the fixtures are going to fall, which I think is really important to think about as FPL managers. So if we're looking at Arsenal, um, those Athletic Madrid ties at on April 29th and also May 5th, those are two massive fixtures for the club. I mean, this is only the second time Arsenal have been in back to back UCL semifinals. So you know that both of those fixtures are going to be very draining. It'll be high intensity. I mean, we just watched PSG and Bayern Munich score what 5 and 4 goal. It was 5-4.
Uh-huh.
It's gonna
Yep.
be 0-0, I'm assuming, in both legs of Arsenal Athletic with with it
Yep.
probably going down to penalties at Emirates. That would be the opposite.
The exact opposite of PSG
Who
versus
knows?
Bayern.
Who knows though? But
Probably.
for
Probably.
for an FPL perspective, I think another big thing to highlight too is because a lot of people are gonna be going big on City for the double game week. You wanna make sure that you're looking at, where that Palace fixture falls for the Brentford double, and then also where Bournemouth falls on the May 19th too. That is 3 days after playing Chelsea in the FA Cup. So that they're gonna see a lot of fixture
Mhm.
congestion. City have, I think, I don't know, I'm an Arsenal fan, but I think they've been pretty lucky with injuries through the last 2 months, I'd say. So you could see the fixture congestion catch up with them a little bit. We're also seeing a Villa team too, very last day of the season due to their loss this past week, could have something to play for on that last day, especially if they don't win the Europa League. So there's kind of been a little bit of fluctuation since there. As you can tell for Arsenal too, the fixtures are more spread out after the Champions League. So we'll just have to see how that develops. But just wanted to highlight a little bit of that. Luke, anything off that for you?
No, I think at this point, if you have any chips left over, the most important thing to do now, I think, is to target those Man City and Crystal Palace players.
Yeah.
Um, what that does mean, though, is we have to be a little careful about which Crystal Palace players we're looking at, right? Because they're still competing in Europe, and we know that just kind of how we see here with City, where they have the FA Cup fixture there against Chelsea for the final. They also are gonna Palace will have more fixtures than that, right? Kind of compared to Arsenal here, right, where they have more fixtures sparse throughout. So, we just need to be mindful about that and be aware of the implications because it's really important for us to be maximizing those chips at this point. What I would advocate for people, if you have a triple captain, I think it needs to be played on a City asset, go for game week 36, right, when they double against Crystal
Mm.
Palace and Brentford.
Yeah.
Both of those being at home, I think make them a prime target, and we know City are gonna be pushing. They know they have to get 3 points, and they know against those teams they can score goals, so they're gonna have to score
Yeah.
goals themselves. So I would advocate for people to be using those triple captains, on City assets for those weeks.
Yeah. Luke, I
If you're
think
on Go ahead, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say if you're looking at it from a sword mentality, I would say maybe check out Mateta for the double game week. Talk about high upside there.
Yeah, potentially, I think so. We
Yeah.
have Palace play, let's see. They play Everton at home and then Man City away. I don't love those fixtures, like, I think you want a piece of that action, but I don't think Mateta can play in 2 fixtures back to back consistently, right? It feels like he's almost being saved exclusively for Europe and then maybe subbing on for Premier League fixtures at this point, for the last
Yeah.
20 or 30 minutes. So just I would be careful with Mateta, but he does have a really high upside if he is playing, if he has those X minutes
Yeah.
as we talk about. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, but I think that should kind of wrap us on this section here. We'll see
Mhm.
how it plays out for these two teams, but we've got the game week 34 results here. It is missing one fixture, the first one of Chelsea and Brighton. That's where Brighton absolutely thrashed Chelsea.
Love to see it.
So yeah, but it didn't make the cut unfortunately due to the sizing of the screenshot. So yeah, I think what we're looking at here is there were some really interesting games this week. They were a lot of fun. I mean, if you had Gibbs White and you get that massive return from him going into a Friday fixture, you're already heads up, right?
Yeah.
Head and shoulders over everyone else. So
Mhm.
um yeah, we could dive into these a little bit more, but other noteworthy results: West Ham getting 3 points, Tottenham getting 3 points, and then, like I mentioned, Forest getting 3 points in the relegation battle. And then we also have Man City and Arsenal getting the 3 points that they desperately need. So
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. Let's go
yeah,
to the next
but
slide.
on to the next slide. So we can skip through this one.
Okay.
Um, and on to the sword versus shield debate. With that
Okay.
being said, I will hand it over to you, Paul, because I think we're gonna go sword first as opposed to we're gonna go shield first
Go
as opposed to
shield.
sword.
We're gonna go shield. We're gonna go defensive. Okay.
Yes, shield. So over to you, Paul.
So I'm looking at this from a perspective of how can we preserve rank? How can we do everything possible to keep that existing place that you have and also still gain a little bit, but we're playing this from a very risk adverse perspective with the shield.
Right.
So I kind of wrote down turtle versus hare. We'll dive into that a little bit on the next slide. And also just discussing captaincy because I think that's a really big part of kind of preserving your rank and making sure you know that you're not captaining somebody with a 2% differential and then opening yourself up to a Bruno Fernandez or even Hall that would really, really kill your rank. So those are the main
Yeah.
things we're going to focus on here. We'll just go to the next slide. Okay. As you can tell, turtle. So we're, we want to do this slow and steady. And the way we're going to go about that is it is a thing where rash transfers are something at this point in time you don't want to make, right? So you want to be as clinical and concise as you can with your transfers going forward. I think really planning stuff out for the remaining 4 weeks is crucial at this point. Just taking your time, making sure that taking negative hits at this point if you want to preserve rank is not something you really want to do. So just being steady with that. Luke pointed to himself. um, and so I kind of, for football terms, I think we want to play like Arsenal, not PSG. So if you watch the Bayern Munich and PSG game today, it was essentially a basketball game, right? You're going up and down, you're opening yourself up at
Mhm.
the back. What you want to do in this situation is you want to have that solid defensive back line build
Right.
slowly, and then also just have more of a cautious mentality, I'd say, where you want to make sure that you are making the right decisions. You're taking your time, that kind of thing. So we're going to be more of a turtle than a hare. We're being progressive and just keeping things at a lower pace.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's a good way to approach it.
Hmm.
And the good thing for people to note as well, right? There are reliable point scorers that are just trickling in the points every week. And I think
Yep.
Bruno Fernandez here is a great option for someone
Mhm.
where you can give him the captaincy, you hand him the armband, and you feel like the floor of points is probably 5 points, right? Like,
Yep.
you're at least going to get that. And there's not many other places we can go, and we know that for a fact. I feel like Holland might be something that we're going to talk about here in a second. So I'll hand it back over to you, Paul. But I agree
Yeah.
with all those points.
So basically last week, this is just for some context for everybody. I was after before the Manchester United fixtures on Monday, I was sitting around 25K in the world, right? Had a pretty good week. I have Bruno on my team, and just solely by not captaining him, I went from around 25 to 31K in the world. And so that doesn't seem like much, but whenever we're talking about, these little things like me saying that I want to end up in the top 20K,
Hmm.
being in that spot compared to this one, I made the wrong decision playing with the shield to
So,
captain Watkins.
so if you captain Bruno, you'd probably be top 20K right now, right?
Most likely, yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah.
I would say so, and that's kind of where we're getting at here. I mean, not putting the captaincy there with his effective ownership just really, really damages, the ability to kind of add more rank and even add more what's the word I'm looking for? More
Mm,
distance between me
right.
and the people in
Right.
my mini league, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
And
Yeah.
so another thing to highlight too, for Holland, I think that it would be remiss of anybody playing with the shield to not captain him in a double game week. You
Hmm.
have somebody that can, just erupt for 3 or 4 goals any given game. He hasn't been doing that as much in the second half of the season compared to the first. But if we're looking preventatively, I think that he's the person you need to captain just to protect yourself a little bit. And
Yeah.
I think also just the final point there, just it's time to be clinical, just if you've had a great season, put a bow on it, finish it out the right way,
Finish those high XG opportunities is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Um, and I feel like let's think about football as a prime example, right, of how we want to manage our FPL team. One, you want to be giving yourself a lot of opportunities, right? A lot of chances.
Mhm.
And, we can do that by strategically playing our transfers, by using our chips wisely. That's how we increase our chances, right? The likelihood of being right.
Yeah.
And here at the end of the season, what we also want to make sure we do is we want to make sure, like you're saying, Paul, when you do get those chances, be clinical, finish them. Don't be Thiago against Manchester United. And end up which, I am an XG apologist. I will live and die by it, frankly. Like, I think it's a very important statistic that can tell us a lot that is
Mhm.
drastically underestimated for its
For sure.
value and applicability. But it's crazy he got 0 XG in that match, where he basically had 2 one-on-ones with the lemon. So, I'm surprised that he didn't finish the he, like, you would think on a different day, he could have had a hat trick. And
Yeah.
it's gotta be pretty infuriating for those people who had Thiago and didn't get a return, especially if you bring him in on your free hit. So, that
Yeah.
that would be very frustrating. But okay, any other shield tips for the listeners out there, Paul? Or are we going into sword now?
I think we're good on shield. Let's go into sword. Let's see
Okay.
what our swordsmen have to say.
Yep.
Oh, one other thing. No, yeah, one other thing. So, sorry, I forgot that I added this in. I did want to highlight for everybody real quick, just who the top 5 point returners are in FPL at this point in the season. I think that's something always to factor into captaincy. And yes, some of these players like Semenyo, Rice, especially those two, are not as informed as they were earlier in the season, but they still have proven that they can do it over a full FPL season. So I think still valuable options. But if we're looking at that, I mean, look, I think that all 5 of these picks, even Gabriel, with the right fixtures for Arsenal, could be a good captaincy shout for a week where you're not, preferred to Holland or Bruno Fernandez.
Yep. No, I agree. I agree. He's also one of those players, right? As we talked about, the floor is pretty high with him, right? Where you feel like maybe there's a yellow card in there for him, who knows? But he's usually going to hit DEFCON. And we know with the way Arsenal play, he's going to have a lot of touches. He's going to have a lot of passes. And like I said, DEFCON 2. So it feels like 4 is maybe the floor for him, but there's
Yeah.
also a huge upside for him as well because we
absolutely.
really haven't seen one of those bullet headers in quite a while.
Mhm.
So, something else to keep in mind. Maybe one of those is due kind of soon.
Yeah,
Although we did see a set piece goal for Arsenal this weekend,
yeah,
which
from
which
Eze.
was a very nice work goal and a beautiful hit by Eze. So, yeah, but let's go into the sword.
Let's see it. All right, Luke.
Okay, so wanted to talk about three main ways for us to be more aggressive. Whoops, in how we manage the rest of our FPL season. The first route, and I think the most effective at this point, is to play it pretty risky. And that's going to be by targeting differentials. By differential, that means a player is owned by less than 10% of the game. So
Mhm.
the the value of points you're getting is much higher because they're less owned, right? You're getting those points that less people are getting as well. Um, that's why we like differentials, but it does come with a double-edged blade because there's a reason why those players aren't in a lot of teams because they're not returning as consistently as we would
Mhm.
expect them to if we're going to bring them into our team. So you're really kind of taking a punt and hoping that a player has either just started that purple patch and they're moving into the meat of their returns, or you're going to get a player when they've gone off the boil and the returns dry up out of nowhere, right? So it starts to get a little sketchy, but we don't have a choice if we're playing with the sword at this point. So
Mhm.
what we can do is we can better inform our decision making to pick those differentials. And how I personally like to do that is I like to do a unique mix of the eye test and then also combine that with underlying numbers, right? Like, how is this player's expected goals looking? How is their expected goal involvement? So combining expected goals and expected assist. When we look at that together, we can also factor in, chances created, how many goals they have in the recent form, and also very importantly, how is their team playing too,
Mhm.
right? So, for example, I have sorted it to where we have the Premier League table just over the last 5 fixtures. Who do you think is the most informed team over the last 5 fixtures, Paul?
Brighton.
It is indeed Brighton. They've won 4 of their last 5,
Mhm.
and they have 13 points out of those last 5.
Yeah.
Um, very noteworthy, they did have that 2-2 draw against Spurs, where they potentially could have lost that, but they had the last gasp winner. So they have been converting their chances. The important thing here is that they do have a good run of fixtures going forward. They have Newcastle up next, and Newcastle look like a team that is shipwrecked and there's no help on the way, right? Like they're just slowly sinking into the ocean and they know where they're going, but there's nothing they can do about it,
Yeah.
right?
Lee
So
Howe has his shirt off, waving it as the ship's going down, trying to signal for help, and it's just there's no help right now.
but Anthony Gordon's life raft is on its way.
Yeah.
And he is on his way elsewhere.
Yeah.
But we don't have to get into that drama right
He's
now.
taking the little dinghy in the other direction.
He's taken Wissa with him as well after under a year at the club. So
God,
I don't even know where to go with that. But the
dark
important thing
journey.
here is that I think Newcastle is a good team to target. I think Brighton assets have been very good. And Paul, if you want to go to the 2 slides down, I think no, it should be 3 slides down. So Kadioglu is someone that I think is a really good option for a lot of people to look at, right? He's only priced at 4.4 million. As we can see here, his returns have been really good as of late. So he did have a 1 pointer against Spurs, but he had 15 points, 6 points, 2 points, 8 points, and then 1 point from that. So he is a man in form right now. We know his team is playing really well, and he's only selected by 0.8% of the game,
Yeah.
which is crazy upside, right? Like those
Mm.
points just aren't counting for anyone else if you have them in your team.
Yeah.
Obviously, there is an argument to be made that when you look at it, if people have Van Heck, if they have Verbruggen, you're kind of sharing some of those points, but if he has another 15 pointer, happy days, right? Like you're on for a great week already. So
Hmm.
I think he's a really good option to look at. I like the fixtures. So it goes Newcastle away, Wolves at home. We have Leeds away, and then they close out the season with Manchester United at home. And I really like that, right? Like that's a good fixture. We could see them pushing for Europe, right? At this point in time, Brighton currently sits sixth. Like they're in a European spot currently. It's just a matter of if they're going to be able to fight off the rest of the field below them.
Yeah.
Um, and there is a unique situation where if Aston Villa win Europa League and the table stays as is, where they're in fifth place, the Champions League spot would then go to the sixth place team who would be going to Europe, going to Europa League.
Well,
So if it is of utmost importance that they continue winning the fixtures that they have.
but, like, isn't it also possible too, this is playing really hypothetically, that if Arsenal win the Champions League, would another spot slide down as
I
well?
don't think so. No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think 6 is probably the maximum we'd see in Champions League. I haven't looked into that. I don't think that's gonna happen though. Um,
Let me ask chat.
I think there's a technicality with where you finish in your respective league table that prevents that from happening, but, it is very, interesting. So, um, Brighton assets, I think are a green flag right now. I think it's a good place to go for, and Kadioglu is someone who could be a really good differential for us to target. So Paul, if you wanna go back to the slide kind of highlighting, the
Mhm.
choices here.
1 second. What are we doing? This thing does not want to work. Well,
That's okay. So the thing is,
okay. Here we
whenever
go.
we're looking at these players, right? So I think, and we can go back to Okafor. I think he's the next player that we can go into. Okafor is another player that not only do I love Leeds fixtures, I really like the way they've been playing as of late, right? Like out of the last 5 fixtures, they've drawn 3 and they've won 2, right?
Mhm.
And they have Burnley at home, right? Like this is a prime fixture for them to say, if we win today, not only could they potentially get themselves out of the relegation battle, and I think, at that point they're on 43 points. Like they should be good the remainder of the season. That would
Mhm.
if they win and Newcastle United lose, they pass Newcastle on the table and go into 14th on the table.
Isn't
So I
that
think
crazy?
it's insane. It is absolutely crazy. So I think there is a lot riding on this fixture for Leeds because if you win against Burnley at home, you're on the beach for the rest of the season. Right? Like you're staying up. I do not see the relegation line pushing above 40 points, frankly. I think
Yeah.
maybe it does, but I doubt it. I doubt it. So I think once you get above that, especially 42 points, 43 points, you're good. Right? I don't think that's going to be a problem.
Like,
And
it's crazy
what?
that Sunderland and Tottenham goal differential is separated by 1. So
Yeah.
Sunderland's -9, Tottenham's
Yep.
-10. Like,
Yeah.
that just
If
shows
I
you the
mean,
variance, you know?
here's the thing. If you look at the XG table, so expected goals, Sunderland would be relegated,
Yeah.
right? They
Yeah, and you have
would
to factor
be
in the loss last weekend too to Nottingham Forest. That's inflating that number a little bit, but
a little bit. They've been overperforming for a while now, but not drastically, right? So they've kind of reverted to the mean a tiny bit, but here's the thing: Sunderland are going to stay up, good for them. But the important thing here, though, I also want to mention about Leeds is they're currently sitting sixth in the form table, right? Like so, over the last 5 fixtures, they sit sixth in that table. They sit
yeah,
sixth in that table, and that tells me they're a team that's playing really well right now, but they also have great fixtures coming up, and I think we've gotta be a little careful about it because they could potentially be on the beach pretty soon, but I think this week going into game week 35 is a great week to target Leeds assets.
Mhm.
It'll definitely be something on my mind because playing with the sword right now, right? Got to be very careful about who I'm bringing in because I need the points, but I need to be more aggressive with who I'm transferring in. So
Yeah.
Okafor is someone else who is very front of mind for me. And we can go over to the last differential I had listed here, Paul, and that is no one other than Kiernan Dewsbury Hall. He's been in great form lately, um, and currently selected by about 6% of the managers. Everton's one of those teams where I feel like they look really good over the past couple game weeks, and I think luck just hasn't been on their side, right?
Mhm.
Because losing 2-1 to West Ham, that's a really tough loss. That's one of those where you would think that you get the point, right? After you equalize, close up shop, run away from the London Stadium with that point, and it just didn't happen. So it's something that we have to keep on our minds. But I also think they're going to give City a pretty difficult time going into game week 35. I was like, please, 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 please. um, so, and what we've seen consistently over since he's been back, KDH is going to be at the center of everything that Everton are doing. Um, he is their creative hub. He's the one that is pushing the tempo for them. He's the one that's creating chances for other players. But he's also the unique combination of a player who also finishes chances for himself too,
Yeah.
and not in an overly selfish way. So it's good to know that you get the attacking potential with goals, but also attacking return potential with assists too. The only drawback with him is he's not on pens, so that does make Njai a little bit more of an interesting option with the penalty perspective. But I still think KDH is the better overall pick, with
Yeah.
how he's been playing lately. So, coming in under 6%, I don't think a lot of people will be transferring him in for City at home. So I'm really happy to have him, right? I think that's a fixture that he could do really well in, but it also means that not a lot of people are going to be bringing him in. So I really like that idea, of his ownership not going up that much. Their remaining fixtures, they have Man City at home, Crystal Palace away, Sunderland at home, and then they end the season at Spurs. So some pretty good fixtures there. At least there will be goals that they will be taking part in. So
Yeah.
keep an eye on KDH. I think he's a great pick.
Yeah, what's interesting too about that, Luke, is that by the last game of the season, both Everton and Tottenham could both still really have stuff to play for.
Yeah, for
So
Europe. Yeah.
I think you would see that I completely agree with you that he does feel like a really good pick because all four of these fixtures remaining are going to have a lot of weight, and Everton will be going for it, in their own way, as
Yes.
Everton
Yeah.
does go for it. But
We do need to mention, right? There's a really big point that Paul just made there. That if we look at the current table, in sixth, we have Brighton on 50 points, but then all the way down to 12th, we have Sunderland sitting on 47 points. So from sixth to 12th, it's separated by 3 points, which and also, yeah, Sunderland at 46, sorry. I was looking at Everton. Um,
very good.
but 4 points differentiating the teams competing for Europe, that means that all these teams have something to play for, right? Like,
Mhm.
even Chelsea at this point have a chance, which is crazy, because they
You
have
think that?
been the worst team. Over the last 5 matches, they've managed 0 points over the last 5 matches. And
You
have they scored a goal in those? No, they have not.
Okay, wait. We're gonna go over this real quick because it's kind of hilarious. If you look at Chelsea's fixture since March 7th, right? They beat Wrexham 4-2 in the FA Cup, which they were down and scored, I think, two pretty late goals to win that. They've lost of let's see, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. Of 8 matches, they've lost seven.
Ew,
And their
that's not
only
good.
win was over Port Vale in the FA Cup.
They did beat Leeds this week too,
Yeah, I didn't
this
include
past
that one.
weekend.
It was more fun to say they've lost 7 of 8, but, 7 of 9
Yeah.
is
Well, in the
great.
Premier League, they've lost 5 in a row. So
Yeah.
that the crazy thing is we thought, Chelsea were locked in to Champions League. It wasn't even a question for the longest time. and then they've just been quite horrible as of late. So, something to keep in mind as we go forward. But all is to play in Europe, and
Mhm.
I think that feeds into the captaincy discussion that I want to have a little bit, and then I think we'll wrap after that because when we're looking at captaincy, especially if you're trying to play more aggressively, Bruno Fernandez is someone that I would not recommend captaining over the next 4 game weeks if you really think you want to push and try to make up some ground over people. Because if we look at Manchester United's fixtures, they have Liverpool at home, which is always going to be a really difficult fixture. That one's always has a gravitas to it, right? Like there's extra in that match. Sunderland away could be tricky. Then they have Forest at home, who will have a ton to play for.
Mhm.
And then they have Brighton away to close out the season. And Brighton could be pushing for a Champions League spot at that point. So
Yep.
I feel like I think going into that Brighton and United fixture, we will know if Aston Villa has won the Europa League or not. Right? Like I
Yeah.
think the Europa League final is right before that,
Here,
a
I'll look it
couple
up.
days before it. Um, so they'll know if they can qualify for Champions League or not by winning or losing. So that's something that we will have to keep an eye on going forward. But with Bruno Fernandez, he is someone who has a high floor, but United have looked a little wobbly as of late, right? Like I think teams have figured out how to play against Carrick a little bit better, and that presents challenges for them. So if you do want to hedge your bets a little bit, maybe you keep Bruno on the team and just don't captain him, right?
Captain
Um,
Casemiro.
Casemiro, 9 goals this season, 2 assists. He's been so good, right? Like he's been very impressive as of late. Players who I think could be interesting captaincy shouts, right? I'll just list them off. I think Cherokee is someone who's very intriguing for a captaincy, especially in the double for game week 36. I think Nico O'Reilly is someone who I'd be willing to give the armband to over a double, right? Like we know he's really important to how they play, and he's been finishing chances and playing in that really progressive position he has. What I
Mhm.
do worry about is we've seen some fixtures like what was the most recent one that City played? I can look it up.
Which one are you talking about?
Sorry.
The last one? The last one they
When
played?
Man City played, who did they play last week? I can't remember right
It
now.
was, it was Burnley.
Yeah, when they played Burnley, we saw Nico Riley line up as a holding midfielder, right? He was filling in for Rodri with the injury that he had, and I don't like the attacking potential of that. As soon as he shifted into the left back position, he was playing on the back of center backs, right? Like he was pushing, and he had that great opportunity that he didn't finish. So, um, it's one of those we just have to keep an eye on. If he continues to play in that holding midfield position, I would not captain him, right?
Yeah.
So just something to be aware of there. A couple more players that I think would be interesting shouts for captaincy. Maybe Munoz over the double could be a really interesting pick. It seems
I
like
like that.
he's going to play for them, right? Even if they're playing in Europe, he's so important to how they play that I think he's someone that we could potentially target by
Scored
bringing into
last
our
weekend.
teams. Yes, he did, and he ran away. But yes, so I think Munoz is another interesting shout. And I think when we even if we look at the players that I highlighted as differentials, Okafor would be a fun pick for a captaincy next week. And then KDH and then Kadioglu could be interesting picks too. So um here's the thing though, I think Holland, if you have a triple captain, he's probably the safest place to put it for the double. So it's one of those things we have to keep in the back of our minds that if we want to go really differential with some of our transfers, maybe we played a little bit safer with the captaincy, because we do want to protect the rank a little bit, even especially but if you're in the 3 million range up to 5 to 6 to 7, maybe 10 million, I would just go with a crazy differential captaincy. Um, because
Yeah,
what do
as
you
we
have to lose?
should.
What do you have to lose, right? Like
Might as well just have fun the rest of the season, right?
we're almost on to the next season at this point. So I would advocate for people just having fun with it. Trust your gut and go with it. So that is going to bring me to a close on the sword discussion here on Top Ends with Twins.
But
Paul, I need you to edit in a sword in my hand as I
oh,
do that.
we could do that.
Okay, sure. Yeah, sure. But that I think is going to bring us to the tail end of the podcast. So, Paul, do you have any final thoughts for the listeners out there?
I think I know this was a philosophy podcast. So I appreciate all the FPL people sticking around and really, bearing with us through that because I know it can be pretty dense sometimes with philosophy and, all these big like moral things and all that stuff. But this is the time, in the FPL season where, if you've had a bad season, there's still time to make up ground to kind of get in a place you want. If you've had a great season, there's still time, for lack of a better term, to fuck it up. So you just want to make sure that
Uh,
you're
dang.
finishing the season the right way. We were so
W-
close. So
once again demonetized. Oh,
man, we were so
oh
close.
well. What can
Whatever.
you do?
It was
But
worth it.
I agree, Paul. I think those are good points. I like how you described approaching the shield approach. I think it'll be really good for people who are in similar positions to you as well. Right,
Mhm.
where hopefully they can absorb some of that knowledge and then apply it to how they want to manage their teams. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Any other closing thoughts for you, Luke?
I don't think any I think I kind of got everything out there during the podcast, right? Because we're like we said, we're nearing the very tail end of the season. It's been a long season. If we look back on where we're at in game week 31, our FPL teams are very different and our lives are very different as well, right? It's kind
Yeah.
of the beauty of a Premier League season. It just really drags on. But I
It
do
does.
know once we get through game week 38, I'm gonna miss it
Yeah.
almost instantly. But hopefully everyone can enjoy the summer away from FPL and just kind of dig their teeth into the World Cup and really enjoy that for what it is.
Yeah. I think,
Not
Luke,
sure if we'll be doing any fantasy content for that, but
yeah, probably not. I think we'll do more like World Cup coverage, that kind of stuff. But I can tell you too that I'm gonna need like a good like 2 week detox after how this
mhm.
season's ended to just reset and even prepare for the World Cup because it's gonna
And
it's already
it's also gonna depend a lot on who wins the title, I would say, right?
yeah.
We don't need to delve into those deeper waters, but,
We'll save
I
that for
think
later.
you all know where that's going, so I
Mhm.
think that's gonna bring us to the end of this podcast, though. I really appreciate you all joining in for this week's episode. If you haven't yet,
Like,
be sure
comment,
to
subscribe.
subscribe and like. Leave us a comment. Tell us where you're at with your game week 35 team, how you're feeling about that team, and what your goal is for your overall rank after game week 38. So, thanks for joining this week, everyone, and we will be back next week to talk with you all. See you,
All
Paul.
right. Thanks, everybody.